Every good risk taker knows that out on the fringes of mainstream society, out in the frontier lands, certain liberties can be taken, certain loopholes will exist, and certain quasi-legal behavior will be tolerated. That is right up to the point that it gets too big. As soon as the economic value of those activities becomes too great, or it starts to threaten the status quo, the attention of the mainstream will be awakened, and suddenly those frontier lands will find themselves under the thumbs of new overlords. It's looking like crypto is about to find itself at that tipping point. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the new MiCA regulations in the EU, the Vasil hard fork arriving to Testnet, the MuesliSwap AMM going live on Mainnet, a new feature from MinSwap, and quite a few more details on the Virtua mint. If you sometimes dress up like Julius Caesar just to get your significant other to respect your authority, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, including today, a big national holiday in a big chunk of North America, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Well, it looks like we may have finally become too big, and our new overlords may be arriving in the frontier lands of crypto. Here is the Council of the EU with their press release on something we've been talking about for quite a while, actually. You remember, we've kind of been following this markets in crypto assets proposal in the EU for quite some time. And the last time we talked about it, they were going to go into trilogues. And trilogues was this period where certain parties within the EU would sort of negotiate with each other and come up with sort of a joint proposal that they'd reach consensus on. It looks like they've finally reached consensus. The Council of the EU says the Council Presidency and the European Parliament reached a provisional agreement on the markets in crypto assets MiCA proposal. And it covers a lot of different things, but you'll notice one of the big hot items here is stablecoins. No surprise, stablecoins has been at the top of every regulator's list since they figured out what stablecoins were. It seems like there is some meager level of tolerance for our wildly fluctuating base layer coins, but only the overlord gets to print the things that look like actual currency. And that's why they're so worried about stablecoins. Stablecoins look a lot like the currencies that the overlords print. They're not down with us printing things that look like currency. In this release, Bruno Le Maire, French economic minister, says this landmark regulation will put an end to the crypto Wild West and confirm the EU's role as a standard setter for digital topics. Just digital topics in general, anything digital, they're going to be the standard setter. But you know it's bad. It's always bad for you if the industry you're in is called the Wild West by any regulator. That's almost always a bad sign. So they kind of go through the consumer protection aspects of their regulation, and it's kind of all the kind of language you'd expect. Crypto asset service providers, which actually becomes a pretty important acronym under MiCA, this CASP acronym, crypto asset service provider. And you can tell it's a very broad term. I mean, pretty much anybody doing anything in crypto, you know, on the face of the language, you could call a crypto asset service provider. You're providing some kind of service in crypto. You're probably one of these CAS in this CASP category. So these CASP entities will have to respect strong requirements to protect consumer wallets and become liable in case they lose investors' crypto assets. That would be a very bad thing for a lot of the projects in the robbery forest who have lost hundreds of millions of dollars of consumer assets. Under this language, they would be liable for those losses, and I think that's a very different risk calculus for a lot of these entities. They say MiCA will also cover any type of market abuse. Okay, great. We kind of expect that. Market manipulation, they're going to be into market manipulation, insider dealing, all the kinds of things we'd expect from the regulation of the equities and other securities world. They say actors in the crypto asset markets will be required to declare information on their environmental and climate footprint. So this is where it gets kind of interesting. The European Commission will have to provide a report on the environmental impact of crypto assets and the introduction of mandatory minimum sustainability standards for consensus mechanisms, including the proof of work. I love how it's not just including proof of work or including, you know, proof of work protocols or proof of work consensus protocols. It's just including the proof of work. It's become a thing. They can put the article "the" in front of. It's just the proof of work. We'll talk a little bit more in just a second about what could have happened to the proof of work. Then they talk a little bit about AML, what they want to do with AML, and having their banking regulator keep a list of third countries considered high risk for anti-money laundering activities. And it's kind of funny, they just refer to them as third countries considered at high risk for anti-money laundering activities. It's a little unclear what the first and second countries were. I guess, I don't know, like European EU countries are first. What's second? These are third countries considered at high risk for money laundering activities. Then they kind of get to the meat of it. They start talking about stablecoins, and they don't give us the sort of the most controversial things about the MICA proposal in this little release, but they do say MICA will request stablecoin issuers to build up a sufficiently liquid reserve with a 1-to-1 ratio and partly in the form of deposits. Every so-called stablecoin holder will be offered a claim at any time and free of charge by the issuer. And the rules governing the operation of the reserve will also be provided for minimum liquidity. Also, so-called stablecoins will be supervised by the European Banking Authority. We've been talking about this for a long time. It was super obvious that stablecoin issuers were going to fall under the banking regulators. Surely the audits that will inevitably be required under those banking regulators will feel like proctology. Then they get back to these CASPs. They say crypto asset service providers will need an authorization in order to operate within the EU. There we go. In order to operate under this broad category of entities, crypto asset service provider. If you are a crypto asset service provider, which sounds pretty broad to me, you will have to receive authorization in order to operate within the EU. There goes permissionlessness. If you thought crypto was permissionless, it is not under MICA if you're any kind of crypto asset service provider. Interestingly, though, they say non-fungible tokens. And here they give a definition of non-fungible tokens, which some might find a little bit uncomfortable. They say non-fungible tokens. You notice this doesn't say e.g., which would be like, for example. They say i.e., which means that is non-fungible tokens. That is digital assets representing real objects like art, music, and videos will be excluded from the scope except if they fall under existing crypto asset categories. So they say real objects. What if it is completely computer generated art, digital art? So let's say not even computer generated, created by a human, but it's not any kind of tangible object. There's not any kind of actual physical artwork out there. It's not like a photo and a photographic image of a real piece of art in the real world. It's just digital art. I mean, there's a little bit of ambiguity here in this definition. They also say within 18 months, the European Commission will be tasked to prepare a comprehensive assessment and, if deemed necessary, a specific, proportionate, and horizontal legislative proposal to create a regime for NFTs and address the emerging risks of such new markets. So they're kind of leaving open the possibility of also regulating NFTs, even though they're saying NFTs will be excluded from the scope, except if they fall under these existing categories. So it's sort of like NFTs are cool as long as they don't fall under any of our existing categories. Also, we might just regulate NFTs as well. Of course, that press release is just giving us a very palatable, least controversial, perspective on MICA. But if we go to this thread by Ernest Urtasun, who is a European member of parliament from Spain and a part of the Greens EFA party, then we get a little more detail, and he gets into some provisions that might be a little bit more controversial, especially if you're a stablecoin provider. So he goes through all the normal language about how they're trying to provide security for investors, support sustainability, increase legal clarity, reduce fragmentation, provide safeguards against the things like cases like the collapse of the stablecoin Luna USD and the crypto crash. So somehow the European Union is going to safeguard us against crypto crashes. I don't know how that's going to work. Here's where it starts to get a little bit more controversial. Large stablecoins will be subject to strict operational and prudential rules with restrictions if they are used widely as a means of payment and a cap of 200 million in transactions per day. I think if you're familiar with crypto and how it works, the big stablecoins we all use are going to far exceed that cap in many cases. For instance, looking at CMC just a few moments ago showed that USDC over the last 24 hours has traded 3.6 billion with a B, and Tether has traded 28 billion, far in excess of this 200 million euro figure up here. They also say, we will have a new crypto sheriff in the EU. ESMA will have intervention powers to prohibit or restrict the provision of crypto asset services by CASPs or distribution or sale of crypto assets. So pretty much anything, the provision of services or the distribution or sale of crypto assets, that's like everything in crypto. Finally, remember that Ernest Urtasun is a member of the Greens EFA party, and he says, my group wanted a plan to phase out the use of the very polluting, inefficient, and energy and technology-intensive proof-of-work consensus mechanism. This was unfortunately not possible, but we ensured a compromise with the first steps towards sustainability of crypto assets. ESMA will develop sustainability indicators to classify consensus mechanisms according to the adverse impact on climate and environment. The review clause introduces minimum sustainability standards for the consensus mechanisms once the regulation is updated in 48 months. So it was almost big trouble for proof of work blockchains like Bitcoin. And it looks like in 4 years, they're going to once again cause big trouble for Bitcoin. Obviously, bad news for proof of work blockchains. Comparatively very, very good news for proof of stake blockchains. So what happens next? If we go back to our Council of the EU press release, they remind us the Council adopted its negotiating mandate on MiCA on November 24th, 2021. Trilogues between the co-legislators started on March 31st, 2022, and ended in the provisional agreement reached today. This press release was from June 30th, if I remember correctly. Yep. 30 June. And next steps are the provisional agreement is subject to approval by the Council and the European Parliament before going through the formal adoption procedure. So this is not law yet. These aren't live regulations at this point, but it looks like it's just a matter of going through these final formal adoption steps before these regulations are actually live. Those are some very broad and sweeping policies, likely a step in the wrong direction for proof of work and likely to make life a lot harder on anybody who might be deemed a crypto asset service provider, which seems like it could basically be any company in crypto. So this is a pretty big deal. But over here in Cardano land, looks like things are bright and cheery as usual. IOHK says, we're happy to report that today at 2020 UTC, the IOG team has successfully hard forked the Cardano Testnet. This is an important next step toward the Vasil upgrade on Mainnet. So this was exactly as planned. We knew the testnet hard fork was going to happen today on July 3rd. I think this puts us right on schedule for the Mainnet hard fork combinator event that'll add all of the great tools in the Vasil upgrade later on this month in July. MuesliSwap is now live on Mainnet as an AMM. So this is something people have been waiting for a long time. MuesliSwap already had an AMM live on Milkomeda. Now they have an ADA Milk liquidity pool live on Mainnet. And this is part of a new reality of MuesliSwap on Mainnet as a hybrid order book and AMM. I really liked what they've done in the past as a pure order book, but the MuesliSwap team is so creative. I wouldn't be surprised if they do some things as a hybrid order book AMM that may be slightly different than some of the other AMMs. I know some of the AMMs on Cardano, just because of the way UTXOs work, we kind of end up calling them, hybrid order book AMMs anyways. But I think with MuesliSwap, that label might take on some new meanings. If you're curious about what other Cardano dexes have been called hybrid AMM order books, I would reference this article from SundaySwap. SundaySwap presents the Scooper model. And if you go down here to this section that is called Our Solution, the Scooper model, the preceding paragraph says, resolving this issue and the other issues we've discussed leads us to the solution that we'll be launching with a hybrid AMM order book. They say, finally, we come to a solution that we've chosen to go with for our launch. Internally, we've been calling the solution AMM order book. I think the hybrid AMM order book that MuesliSwap will develop will probably look a little bit different than some of these other hybrid AMM order books. Speaking of DEXs, here's an interesting development from MinSwap. They say Cardano tokens traded on MinSwap are now tracked on CMC. Cardano tokens no longer need to list on a centralized exchange to get tracked on CoinMarketCap. Projects can list their tokens on MinSwap DEX and get tracked automatically on CoinMarketCap. So that's a little added bonus for projects that put their tokens on MinSwap. Looks like they automatically get on CMC now. We've also got some new information from Virtua on Cardano Island. So skipping right down here. First up, we found out there will be Cardano condos, and they say they'll be more of an entry-level purchase at a reasonable price. We found out about some of the resources that'll be available on the lands. Looks like we've got iron, gold, goo, wood, electro rock, and cardonium. We also found out what the bots will look like. You'll remember we had already learned that there would be different roles for these bots, and they would include things like investor, scientist, miner, scout, explorer, and mechanic, if I'm remembering right. There's a little bit of information about summit slots for the summit NFTs, slots for NPCs, and of course, maybe most importantly, there is pricing now. And I believe these are going to be the most expensive initial mints of any Cardano metaverse project that I know of. Let me know if you know of one where the initial mints exceeded these prices. Definitely in secondary. Some have immediately gone in secondary for prices in excess of these, like the Cornucopia's Copious plot. Those immediately kind of went for much higher prices in secondary. But I think these might be the highest initial mint prices we've seen in any Cardano metaverse project. Let me know if you know of one that exceeded these. I can't quite locate the date on the actual Cardano Island website, but it looks like here in the Discord, there's this post. They say, we're less than 7 days away from the start of the Cardano Island land sale. That was on June 30th. And the image down here says land sale July 7, 2022, 7/7/2022. Looks like that is the day when a bunch of people will be buying the most expensive video game ever. I'm sure you video game guys are like, no, there was a video game. It costs more than this. But in any case, this is definitely, if you think metaverses or metaverse projects are video games, then this would definitely be a very, very expensive video game. I hope everybody is going to have a great day today. For a lot of you in North America, a big chunk of North America, this is one of the biggest, most fun holidays where things explode. Many drinks are drunk. A lot of barbecue is eaten. So I hope whether you're a part of that part of the world or somewhere else in the world, that you are going to have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.